Elbow pain is an injury that people can suffer with for years, but that is not going to be you. I'm going to tell you exactly why. My name is Jack Crucial. I'm an injury rehab consultant. I work with a ton of guys in the combat sports field, as well as individuals who have had injuries for years and they can't resolve it. They've worked with other therapists, they've tried everything under the sun, but they just can't resolve their injury. Those are the people that I work with. My aim is to help as many of you guys as possible so that you don't have to go through what I did. My one injury ruined my entire professional sporting career, and I don't want that to happen to you, and I don't want you to not be able to do what you love just because you're not following the right plan. What I'm going to cover will show you how to look at any elbow injury. So these principles can be applied across any elbow injury that you have. And the biggest takeaway is to zoom out. To dive into this further, we will cover shoulder protraction and reaching mechanics, elbow rotational ability, progressively loading the elbow effectively, as well as training around elbow injuries and elbow pain. Tennis elbow and other elbow specific joint injuries do not need to be a lifelong issue. And you'll notice here that 2 of the 4 principles are actually what's occurring at the shoulder, not the elbow. So let's cover these in more detail. So principle 1 is shoulder protraction and reaching. A common theme you'll see me discuss is how we share load evenly across the body. If we can free up the way that the shoulder moves, then our elbow isn't required to absorb as much force as a result. Think of it as landing on a cushioned foam surface versus a brick wall. Giving you greater abilities to move and glide against the rib cage creates a reduced load demand through the elbow. Here's an example of a seated row utilizing the entire protraction and retraction mechanics that I'm discussing, really emphasizing reaching forward and allowing the shoulder blades to glide around the rib cage effectively. Your elbow doesn't just bend and extend like a hinge. Much like the knee, it rotates as well. But it moves and rotates even more than the knee joint does. If your elbow is stuck and cannot rotate, then you can't transfer load either up towards the shoulder or down towards the wrist as effectively. Any situation where you have a reduced range of motion and stiffness causes greater forces at that exact area. So improving rotation via this pronating tricep extension exercise example is a strategy that can help you mobilize the elbow and restore rotational mechanics. The third principle is legitimate elbow loading. I can guarantee if you've ever been given elbow exercises, they were likely very light and submaximal in nature. It was probably 1 or 2 pounds, 1 or 2 kilograms, and you did it for high rep endurance. This is great if you're entering a nursing home, but we are better than this. I don't care how weak you feel you are in the elbow. If you don't learn to load it up and start loading it heavily, you are drastically slowing down your healing times. What I'm going to show you here is a legitimate loading exercise for the forearms, and you can tweak the tempo and the weight depending on what your goals are, but this is a far superior way to train wrist flexion and extension through the elbow, not light pissy pink dumbbells. Loop a band around a kettlebell as follows. From there, what we're going to do is place the band on top of a barbell. The barbell will rotate and roll. From here, what we want to do is roll the kettlebell all the way up and then allow the kettlebell to lower, nice and controlled through each and every repetition. This is not only a good exercise for somebody who has had long-standing elbow issues, but it's also a really good way to get really, really strong forearm flexors and extensors, which carry across to sports such as boxing, grappling, all of these sports where we need to be really strong through the elbows. And principle 4 is training around the injury. There are so many things that you can still do. An example of training around an elbow injury is utilizing lifting straps. The benefits of this is there's less grip demands. We don't have to grip the cable or the apparatus that we're using, but we still get the advantage of being able to improve our shoulder mechanics, our shoulder strength, and musculature development around the shoulder and back. You can also leverage equipment, so utilizing dumbbells, playing around with a conventional grip, and then tucking the elbows a little bit in more of a neutral bench press position. This may allow you to still continue to load up the elbows, but irritate them less. So here's a summary of the 4 principles. Number 1 is learning how to protract and retract through the shoulder to offload pain through the elbow. Principle number 2 is learning how to rotate effectively through the elbow joint. Principle 3 is legitimately loading the elbow joint up heavily. And principle 4 is training around the injury whilst you're returning to performance. So these are the 4 elbow principles that I have used for clients who've had 3 years, 5 years of elbow pain, and we've managed to resolve these injuries. If you have an injury and you want it fixed immediately, whether that be an elbow or anywhere in the body, then I invite you to apply to work with me at combattherapist.com. If you're wanting to learn more about injuries and returning to high performance, then like and subscribe to this channel. If you have any specific ideas or any topics that you want me to cover in the future, please comment on this video and let me know. I read each and every one of these comments and I use these as inspiration for my future videos. Cheers.